My name is Phoebe and I'm from the community team at Elastic. And today we're here talking with folks from IU and IU's OmniSOC, Kurt Seiffert and Alice Warner. And we'll go through and everybody will introduce themselves. But we're talking about closing the security skills gap. And we're talking specifically about how IU prepares students for a career in cybersecurity at OmniSOC. So I will, move us on to the next slide. And let's go around and introduce ourselves. So, Stephanie, do you want to go next? You're on my screen next.
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Nissen. So I work as part of the Elastic community team, but I oversee the Elastic for Students and Educator program. So working directly with schools, universities, educators, and students to provide product access, training, and support, and really help kind of develop student and educator skill sets with Elastic solutions.
How about you, Kurt? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Kurt Seiffert. Work for Indiana University. Been here for too many years. My job is a principal security engineer. I've been working with the OmniSOC since their inception on various things and integrations and such, and specifically helping out with their internship program the last 2 summers. So.
Fantastic. And Alice?
Hi, Alice Warner Jackson. I work for Global NOC, which is an aspect of the IU IT department, and in support of ILITE, which is the Indiana Research and Education Network. I volunteered to work with the internship program OmniSOC was running because I think it's a fantastic cause and had been involved in something similar called Summer of Networking. So it was great fun to work with these guys on the internship program.
That's awesome. And Cami?
Hi, I'm Cami Lewis. I am the security lead for community at Elastic. I work very closely with Stephanie and Phoebe. I'm responsible for overseeing the engagement with our security community. So those of you that are on this call and those that may be watching at a future time. So I'm glad to be here. I have a very extensive history in security operations. I won't age myself and tell you how long I've been doing this, but been around.
Well, maybe this is a good place to start, actually, Cami. So we've got a few slides here, and I thought maybe you could kind of kick off and talk a little bit about Elastic Security as we lead into talking about the program at IU, just to give a foundation of what is the tool the students are using amongst other tools, but we'll talk briefly about how Elastic is involved with this.
Sure thing. So I'll just have you control the slides, Phoebe,
sure.
And
Yep.
let you know if I need to move them. So first, for anyone that may not be real familiar with Elastic, we are the company behind the Elastic Stack, or the ELK stack, and ELK standing for Elasticsearch, Logstash, and Kibana. So we have 3 primary use cases: enterprise search, observability, and security, and they all run on top of the same stack of technology components. Our CEO, Shai Bannon, wrote Elasticsearch before the company was founded. Interestingly enough, he actually wrote it for his wife, who was attending school to be a chef, and she needed a solution to search all of her recipes and her data for her schooling. And since then, the technology has evolved, and our community of users have been using it for a variety of use cases. But today we're going to focus on the security use case. So Elastic Security is developing a single architecture to combine the SIEM use case and the endpoint security use case into one holistic product. And we've been working on that for about the last year or so. Just a few examples of organizations that are using Elastic Security in the public sector: the United States Navy, the United States Air Force, the University of Oxford, UC Davis, and of course, the universities we're talking about today that make up the OmniSOC. All of these are using Elastic primarily for security operations as well as security analytics. So when we first started working on security about 2 years ago, we noticed that many community members were using it without any real out-of-the-box functionality from us. So we decided to double down on that effort and create that out-of-box functionality. It was designed specifically for the security analysts working in the operations center, or the SOC. You'll hear that term today, I'm sure. We have 3 areas of focus. The first one being this eliminate blind spots. Elastic doesn't restrict the volume, the variety, or the age of data that you can bring into the stack. So this is a key differentiator for Elastic because security is a data problem. And if you're looking for the needle in the haystack, you need to have the entire haystack. So it's critically important that you have the visibility into all of your data, especially in the world today where our perimeter is completely gone. And we're having to expand our security scope to include things like SaaS applications and cloud infrastructure. So the second focus area is threat detection and prevention. We wouldn't be a security product if we didn't tell you there was a problem and how to stop it. So our core goals at Elastic is to bring mean time to detect and mean time to remediate to 0. And to do that, we always need detection and we need it to be always on. And not just for known threats, but for the unknown threats as well. So how we use a combination of behaviors, as well as machine learning and signatures to find the various scopes of attacks differentiates us as well. Our latest 7.9 release has around 200 detection rules out of the box, all aligned to the MITRE attack matrix. Arm every analyst, that's the third area of focus, that we want to empower every analyst, even those that are junior, so the tier 1 analysts that are just starting their career. So we've invested a lot of effort into making that easier for those junior analysts to learn and to use Elastic Security with the shortest learning curve that's possible for them, as well as to be efficient in their investigations. So this is the last thing I want to show you, just to give you a frame of reference. What we've been doing, the SIM app was released in version 7.2 in June of 2019. So in just a little over a year, we've made quite a bit of progress. So at a high level, what we've done is we added a new application in Kibana, which we originally named the SIM app. And now in 7.9, it is called Elastic Security. So it's been rebranded to Elastic Security. And we've added the endpoint functionality, as I mentioned earlier. It's a single user interface that allows you to manage security events from different log source types, as well as your protections that come with endpoint security. So we've added a detection engine. We've added a lot of out-of-box content. And in October of last year, we joined forces with a company called Endgame as an endpoint security company. And so that's where our endpoint solution is coming from. Since then, we've been working on the integration of that security technology for endpoint with our SIM technology. And like I mentioned earlier, that's the release of 7.9 just a couple months ago that includes both endpoint and SIM functionality. Everything we do is in the open, including the development of our detection rules. We do that in the open as well in a GitHub repo. So now I want to turn it over to Kurt. He's going to talk more about OmniSOC.
So OmniSOC is an organization. It's a unit. Well, we didn't create it as IU has done 503B organizations before for community kinds of efforts, but we modeled this around a similar kind of construct we have. We run the educational ISEC, REN ISEC, here at IU, and we modeled, and we've got some other services that we deliver around to the country, our global NOC, for instance. So we leveraged that, and what was happening was we were meeting with our CISO was meeting with a lot of other CISOs. We were having at educational institutions. We were having a lot of discussions about what seemed like duplication of efforts, especially in terms of some of the engineering and some of the analysis kinds of work that was being done. And we decided that it would be nice to have an organization that could collect all the information from the various NetFlow data and event information from the various schools and have a larger view of that. And so we would be able to, and the hope was to be able to see attacks and things like that that might be easy to miss from an individual school's perspective, but when you've got this more global perspective around it, you can see things, as well as providing these schools with enhanced capability, especially 24/7 eyes on glass kind of services, which many of these schools didn't. So we have 5 starter schools that we started with: IU, Purdue, Rutgers, University, Nebraska University, and Northwestern, right, Alice?
Yes.
Yes, Northwestern University. Each of them pay into the OmniSOC, including IU. From that, we've partnered with Elastic to develop clusters for each school to have their data being housed in, and then we have engineers at OmniSOC that can do analysis and look for threats and also build dashboards for those individual schools to help present that information back to them and give them tools to be able to leverage. And so our engineers are looking at across the data, across the schools, but also responding and sending alerts to individuals, schools as they see them. And this has been a fairly successful project. We're in our 3rd year of doing this. The first couple of years we're sort of building the frameworks of things and getting off the ground. Now we're getting more aggressive, more interested in bringing other schools on board who are interested in collaborating with this stuff. The way we use Elastic, as I mentioned earlier, Elastic is our core. The OmniSOC builds, like I said, an Elastic cluster for each school, and that provides protection for their data. In other words, other schools can't look in each other's data sets. Only the OmniSOC engineers have that view across all of them. At the same time, we've been making some efforts into being able to extract data sets from that, anonymize it, and make it available for security researchers as well. So we're looking at a lot of different things we can do with OmniSOC besides just the straight operational kinds of context that we're providing to the constituent members of the school. So, and I think unless anybody's got any questions, I'll pass on the torch.
Okay, I think I'm up to talk about the actual internship program. And there were 2 very different programs. Our first was in 2019, and that was for students of the participating OmniSOC universities to recruit and send students to us. We were after giving them their first experience in the field, enhancing employability, improving academic outcomes, and educating them about their career choices. We had everything from, outside people coming in to speak about their own personal careers, to field trips, to the Anthem SOC, and as well as classroom projects. The first year, we had 10 students on the Bloomington campus for 4 weeks. They were in class 5 hours a day. And then after that initial 4 weeks, they went home to their home university and finished up on their home campus. Of course, 2020, we made a really fast pivot to online only, and that became a seminar series, 8 seminars in a month. The structure of the training, and Kurt, if you want to jump in on any of this, was the first year was hands-on, and they not only participated in lectures and workshops, but they had a project to do at the end of the 8 weeks. And Kurt was a big part of that, doing stand-up meetings with them, daily, weekly?
Pretty much daily. So yeah, so the curriculum for the first part, for the first 4 weeks in that first year, was pretty much oriented towards educating the students on just networking and the tools that we use. We here at IU, we use Zeek logs a lot. And so we were educating the students on how to use that kind of information, as well as Suricata alerts and things of that nature. And using Kibana and Elastic search to be able to facilitate that. So introducing them to both what networking is about and how network intrusion detection would work, what the data sets that we had in Elastic were, and what the tools we were using with Elastic and Kibana to be able to do these analysis and things. The second half, when we broke it into projects, one of the things we decided, a way that we could get some constructive effort out of the interns and feedback into the OmniSOC project itself, was we started off with this notion of, let's think about projects that would benefit the OmniSOC and the schools in the OmniSOC in various ways with capabilities that the OmniSOC currently doesn't have, and have the students work with us to help at least prototype, if not develop a proof of concept in the first iteration of some of these things. So that first year, what we did was we focused on honeypots, and so what we did was we working with the community honeypot framework out of Duke University. And we tasked the individual students that when they went back to their respective universities, they were to work with the security folks at those universities to start standing up some honeypots that would feed into this community service for Duke. And so each of the groups of students at the respective universities were standing these up, and we were meeting remotely and such on pretty much on a daily basis. We'd meet and see how things were going and move forward with that. And we had some limited success. It was, first time going through, but the students learned a lot. We learned a lot about that. And indeed, IU has continued to run our honeypot that we built from that experiment, and did some kind of interesting things with the way we constructed our honeypots, a little bit different than what other institutions probably usually run in honeypots. The other thing and in the second year before COVID, what we were on track to do was we were going to build detonation chambers, so that if we collected malware or detected malware and such, that we could actually put those into detonation chambers and evaluate them and build that as a resource that could potentially be useful to the institutions that were participating. So that was sort of the curriculum that we had in mind, especially even going into the second year.
Yes, thank you, Kurt.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. When we did the virtual training program, Kurt, well, the training focused on Elastic. I mean, we did do the ramp up into basic networking skills, but we certainly had the most participation on the portion that Elastic delivered. Did you have anything you wanted to add on outcome and skills development there?
Other than I think that it's been useful. I've kept up with a couple of the interns that we had from our first cohort, and just was communicating with one that just landed a job in, I think he's in DC right now. And so the skill sets we were focusing in on mostly were these sort of level one analyst kinds of skills. But I think the fact that we did this project work and we sort of explored beyond just what was immediately available in terms of working with the Elastic tool, but actually started getting in, like I said, with these honeypots and these other things, they still fed in information with that. And so they got more of a fuller cycle on this stuff. The other thing that we were able to do with the seminar series in the second semester was kind of interesting, was aside from the Elastic curriculum, we also sort of were able to introduce and discuss with the students other careers related around here. So we had some various kinds of other types of things besides that SOC analyst kind of work that they were exposed to. So for instance, a colleague of mine did a presentation on forensic acquisitions and the kinds of work we do with that, and how that relates to in total to the incident response and everything else that follows along with SOC analyst kind of work.
Kurt, that actually kind of brings me to one of the questions that I had, which was, what might be helpful for students to think about, based on your experience now having done this program, what are the skills that the cyber industry is really looking for? What are those critical skills? And maybe Cami, you can jump in on this too, because I know that you have experience with this as well. So yeah, I'm just curious for the students who might potentially be audience, they might be wondering, what specifically should I really focus on?
Right. Well, clearly, the more traditional computer science hard skills, at least in terms of understanding network technologies and how operations work in terms of system events and things of that nature, and how you can go about doing those, analyzing those, is a great thing. But at IU, actually, when we were recruiting our interns, one of the things we did was we tried to look beyond sort of the traditional computer science engineering kind of student. We actually went ahead and we've got a school of governance, international governance, that we actively were recruiting in. We were actively recruiting in some other areas. We have a very strong tradition of lots of foreign languages here at IU. And so we were looking very broadly across. And one of the reasons why we were thinking about that, it's like we have skills in terms of engineering and analysis skills and things like that. But one of the things that turns out that we're kind of weak on, or I shouldn't say weak on, but would it be helpful, is bringing in more skills with foreign languages, so that, you know, a lot of threats are coming at us from speakers who aren't native English speakers. And so having a leg up in Russian or Chinese or other kinds of languages is helpful. Being able to read first account documents and things of that nature as we're researching through things, as well as having an aspect of that policy stuff. And we see this as a two-way street, both because we can get these aspects from other students that are not necessarily seen in a traditional engineering, computer science kind of student, but also can give back and make these areas more aware of some of the security implications and such. So even if these students don't continue on a lot in a field directly related to security, their awareness of the kinds of things we're doing as they go off into things that are more policy oriented or in other fields and such, we think that's a plus in terms of sort of spreading the knowledge and things. So when we take a look at skill sets, obviously those hard skills are kind of are really nice, but we also look at some of these other skills that might not be necessarily considered at first blush.
Cami, kind of circling, I'm going to ask you a two-part question. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about what you see the skills gap in the security industry experiencing, and then kind of circle back to the question that Kurt just answered, which is, you know, what are those critical skills you think students should be seeking out and trying to polish to get into the security industry?
Yeah, sure. So I don't want to necessarily pin it to, you know, one type of skills shortage, but rather it's just a talent shortage. And this is not a new phenomenon in cyber. Most estimates I've seen recently are somewhere around 4 million jobs are unfilled. And in the US, that's basically an increase that we need of 62% that I saw in a recent study. So that's a large number. The consensus is that this number will continue to grow as well. The reasons for this skills gap are numerous, but a recent survey I read from ISSA found that many professionals feel constrained by a lack of career development, as well as a lack of training in the industry and training offered to them. And the pandemic is certainly not helping matters on this front. The training industry has been somewhat slow to respond to the pandemic with an engaging, practical way to access security training. That's what makes the OmniSOC internship program so unique. The hands-on training in a SOC setting, whether in person or virtual, is priceless. Just speaking as a security practitioner that's been working in the industry. To answer the second part of your question, I think I would just add to what Kurt said that data science, in addition to computer science, is important to start thinking about. It's a newer discipline, but because security is a data problem, I think when we're looking at candidates for jobs, if they have a computer science background, but if they also have background in data science, that's a huge benefit. That's going to allow you to really utilize those skills for machine learning, and machine learning is becoming such a critical part of cyber these days. The increasing sophistication of adversary attacks has really forced many organizations to play basically a game of whack-a-mole, if you're familiar with that game. Security professionals have a significant challenge keeping up with the attackers. So it's important that they love to learn. That's probably the one thing that I always look for in candidates. It's a continuous learning journey, as are most professions, but with security, it's different. It evolves at a much faster pace. So those are the skills that I would be looking for.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about data science as being a complementary skill set to security, being a security practitioner, but you're absolutely right. If you're looking at data, it makes sense that you would be familiar with how to analyze that data. So as a security industry professional, what do you feel like is the most valuable part of this program? And this is really a question for you, Kurt, and Alice, and maybe you can start, Cami. You kind of touched on it a second ago, a little bit about what you feel like is valuable, getting that hands-on experience. But if there's anything else you can kind of elaborate on why a program like this might be valuable, for those who might be considering developing something like this.
So I think what I've seen is that one of the barriers to entry in cyber is really its access. Many students don't necessarily get the opportunity to dabble in it very early on. And I also find that many people, especially women that are in STEM and young girls in STEM, they're intimidated by this field. So having access very early, starting training and support very early, even earlier than college years, like in high school and middle school, I think is just invaluable. And the hands-on experience that this OmniSOC internship program offers students is invaluable as well, because they can really live a day in the life of a security analyst and see if it's a good fit for them, and pursue it early on when it matters most for their educational years. They can start studying the things that they need to study.
Yeah, I'd like to continue on with that thought a little bit. We had a few rock stars in the program who came in and were really ready for the material that was presented, and they did very, very well. But, I would sort of bet that there are several who, were behind and floundered, but they got exposed to so many different kinds of things and individuals to help them out. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sort of resurface in about 3 years and either take the program again, or we already had one student who did the on-site internship and then re-upped for the Elastic seminar series, and I could really see him coming back in another couple of years and doing even better.
Yeah, I think the other thing that is kind of helpful for the students is they get not only the day in the life kind of thing, but I think they get introduced to just how broad and diverse the security field is in terms of the kinds of opportunities that there are, right? While we focus on some of the SOC stuff and some of the more technical aspects, we can't help but start introducing and talking a little bit about policy compliance kinds of issues, and like I said, other elements of things like forensic investigation or thinking about threat analysis and trying to think about, okay, how can we go about hardening things up, and what are the concerns about them? And so the students, even though we're focusing on that, like I said, they do get in touch with all this stuff. And I think one of the things we do with the OmniSOC project is we try to keep an aware of the fact that we've got a diversity of students. Like I said, some are rock stars, some are still trying to get a handle on this stuff. But we try to be aware of that and keep pushing and letting them be aware or become aware of these other kinds of things that are involved in the security industry. That also might be interesting to them. And again, not even if it is directly in the security industry, how they can think about that stuff in other fields and bring that and help us sort of increase our awareness across other areas as well.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it would be kind of cool to talk a little bit about, where you see Elastic sort of, since we're discussing kind of how industry and education can come together to kind of help fill this skills gap, it would be cool to hear about, how you feel like Elastic's Students in Higher Education program is supporting programs like this. And maybe this is a great time for you to talk a little bit about that program.
Yeah. So having worked in higher ed for 8 years, just on, the administrative part, but also teaching some, I think, I can agree with Cami and what Alice have said, is just that there is this kind of deficit of this real world skills. Students gain this kind of theoretical knowledge, but they don't really have the skill set that makes them necessarily desirable to a specific company or a specific area. And I think, Elastic not only kind of saw that deficit on the education side, but more so in the customer side, listening to our customers and talking to them about, they want people with elastic skill set. It's super desirable, but they don't really have anyone who has that. It's not something that's being taught. And so I think they saw this as an opportunity to, expand their kind of free and open model and really, make a more active and kind of proactive attempt to put it in the hands of students and educators, knowing that not only does it, help kind of students broaden their and diversify their skill set, but it helps educators and kind of gives them a window into creating a curriculum that is applicable, that is real time, that is something that, their students can use in a variety of sectors. And so that's really where this program was created. And so, I kind of came in and saw this as, this is a great opportunity. We have a lot of educators who want Elastic in their classroom, but they just don't know how to get it in there. And so, IU is a perfect example of kind of being able to take the resources that Elastic has, combined with Elastic's kind of commitment to education and willingness to support it, and just, kind of connect the dots. And so, we were able to utilize, our kind of consulting training program, which is generally used for customers who are implementing Elastic into their industry, just as IU did. And we kind of tweak that to say, hey, can we modify this for students, where we're giving them kind of this broad overview of topics, but also giving kind of that hands-on experience and giving them something that they can kind of promote themselves as having gained those skills through this program. And so kind of almost that badging type of experience. And so we really just, it was really more so as looking at what Elastic already offers, both in terms of how everything you can access just by downloading it. I mean, all of our security features are there at a student's fingertips, and what we offer in terms of training and support. I mean, whether it's a free fundamentals class, a virtual workshop that we provide, or just taking what we already do, modifying it slightly, and then making it accessible to students. And so I think, Elastic has this amazing model where everything is already there and available. I think I am just the conduit, which then just kind of connects them with the universities and the students to make it happen. And I think, we have, I think the company behind us, we have the support of elasticians, we have the support of leadership who really want to see this happen and know that it is for the greater good for both the students and for our customers and for the company to be promoting this. And so I think it's something that we'll continue to see grow, this model grow as we grow this program.
Thank you. So the tough question is, what kind of challenges did you experience, Kurt and Alice, with this program? I'm curious to hear about that.
I'd love to start that off with, usually what happens is people come up to about, April. They decide that they want an internship program, and that's not going to work. And you really need to start the January prior to your summer. I mean, at the very latest, you want to be recruiting in October and November. Students are making up their minds for the next summer by the time they go on Thanksgiving break. I mean, in a normal world. And you want time to be able to review and select those students. So it really takes starting very early.
Planning is a big part of it.
Oh, huge.
And how many folks did it take on your side of things to help orchestrate this? I mean, was there a team of people? Was it mostly just you?
It was a team, actually. Kurt is a man of many skills, and I did a lot of the sort of, administrative reaching out across campus to find rooms and, and also if you're in a college situation, you have to reserve those rooms way ahead and sort of be a hog about getting teaching space. But Kurt let me bounce things off of him, and he reached out to his own students. Kurt, if you had anything that you thought were challenges, like in the beginning, you have to also prepare these students for what they're stepping into. Some of them don't live on campus at their home institution, so you have to prepare them for what a dormitory is like and what dorm food is like.
Well, and I would imagine that COVID too really changed the landscape because you had to shift this program to virtual as well, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things that from a more technical side of things that we ran into that were kind of interesting. One of the things that we were trying to do is we wanted to give the students a real life environment that they worked in. So they were working with real data. Was with oversight of engineers and such, but they were analyzing real data and had access to these things. And one of the things that we sort of really didn't think about too much on the first year until we were sort of in the middle, which was we had most of these students just bring their own laptops. And when we started looking at how the students were actually maintaining their laptops and such, we really realized we didn't have really good device management on that. And so one of the things we were planning on doing for the second year, we spent some time, was figuring out how we were going to provide the students with devices so that we could safely bring these students into these secure environments where we had sensitive data going on and such, and do it in a way that we were going to be comfortable with and such. So that actually was something that we just, like I said, we hadn't really thought about too much, but we needed to give more thought to, which was what is the environment that we're enabling these students to work in and with these things. I think the other thing that kind of raised itself that we had to adjust with, and we compensated for, but it took us a little bit of time. As Alice was saying, we had some rock stars, right? We had some people that had actually done significant kinds of interesting work in related areas. And so some of them were really taking off, and some of them were really scratching their heads to sort of catch up and everything. And so one of the things we needed to do, and I think we were able to do as we went through the program, was to make sure that we started pairing these students up in such a way that they could work with each other and sort of complement each other's weaknesses and strengths. And so giving a little bit of thought about that when you're recruiting your students and thinking about how these are going to interact and everything is really helpful. I think the students themselves and some of the opportunities that Alice provided in terms of making sure the students had time to sort of bond outside of the program itself when we were on especially on that first year when we were on site, that really worked out well. And my understanding is that many of the students have kept in contact and such. And in security, one of the skill sets you need that we don't talk about a whole bunch is the networking skill set, right? We're constantly talking and sharing information with others and needing to either on techniques that we're seeing, things that we've seen in our environment, and what kind of stuff that we're seeing. We're always exchanging information about indicators of compromise and things of this nature. And so the networking and effect and everything is fairly great. And so one of the things I think that we also got out of this OmniSOC program was those are students in those cohorts had fairly strong ties with each other and also coming back to us. And so I still, like I said, I still interact with a few of the interns even going forward now. And so, one of the things I always think about when I was going through this, and even with I keep teaching a course here at IU on sort of intro on cybersecurity, And one of the things I always kind of keep in the back of my mind is these are going to be future colleagues, right? If they go on into security fields, these are going to be future colleagues. They may be inexperienced relative to me, but they're going to be future colleagues. And so engendering that spirit and everything, I think, is one of the other benefits we get out of a program like this.
One more thing that especially ties into getting corporate support from somebody like Elastic is that when we've tried to do these programs on grants only, we really struggled to meet an hourly wage that was anywhere near tempting. We had one school that participated in the Summer of Networking that ended up having to combine grants in order to find, to get students to commit. It just poses the folks going into this industry who are serious, who are working their butts off, know that they can go get a job, doing basic server work for the summer and do fairly well. So you've got to be prepared to pay. We paid $18 an hour. And that was, but we had to learn that. We didn't think that was going to be necessary.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the grant portion of this, like how the program got funded from the university side. And so it sounds like that was a variety of grants that came together to make it happen. But it's really cool to hear that Elastic could help make that more achievable. I think this is a great time to kind of open it up. If anybody would like to ask any other questions, even of each other, that would be fantastic. We do have some time for some question and answering.
I have a question for Kurt and Alice. Could you give some examples of what are some of the students that you've had doing now? Do you know what they're doing in industry now?
The one that I was referring to in DC, I believe he's just doing some policy analysis work right now, but he just was newly hired. He was sort of caught in a student dilemma for about a year in terms of finishing things up and not quite getting his degree, and so he finally just made it out. Some of the other students, I don't think that I've interacted with too many of the other ones that have graduated. We had another one that was a graduate student from Argentina. He went back. I haven't heard too much from him.
He's the IT and cybersecurity engineer for the Central Bank of Uruguay.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
So that worked out well.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Some of the other students that are undergraduates, I've had some communication with them, but I think they're still in their learning careers and such. But they've been leveraging some of the stuff that they were able to learn in the OmniSOC in some of the curriculum at schools and things of that nature. Unfortunately, like I said, I haven't seen too many that have graduated yet, because either the students we had were either, like I said, undergraduates, mostly in the sophomore junior space, and or we had some we did have a few graduate students in that first cohort, and those have done fairly well.
One of the rock stars is a junior CSOC infrastructure engineer for a major insurance company, so she's done very well for herself. Yeah, and a lot of folks are either the ones that I tracked down were either in private industry doing cybersecurity, or if they were still in school, continuing to work, for the school in IT, to further their careers. So,
yeah, I think it's probably one of the weaknesses in our program. We don't have a good tracking system for our cohorts leaving, and so that might be something we might focus in on again next year. But right now, I think we're just going to be trying to figure out whether or not we're going to be able to do it on campus. That's our hope. We'd like to get back to our original framework, this modified one.
Well, I'm just gonna quick share my screen again, and I'm going to just Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind taking us through this slide really quick.
Yeah, definitely. So I spoke a little bit about the Elastic for Students and Educator program, and I think, a lot of people, watching this meetup, or attending, I think, work more on kind of the current Alice side of it, where you are, more in the kind of the administrative sector, and possibly you're looking at Elastic or already using Elastic, something to kind of power systems within your university, and not so much for the education side, but hopefully this, meetup has kind of shown where that crossover lies. We've seen a lot of interest from other schools that maybe have SOCs or are using it for a different purpose and want to use that tool to kind of then educate their students and kind of give them that real world experience. So, if that's something that's interesting to you, Elastic has a program for that. That's how we got connected with Alice and Kurt, with IU OmniSOC, and how we're connecting with other universities around the world. So this program, like I said, it was really designed to provide students and educators with support to hopefully get Elastic into the hands of students, bring them into our community, kind of embolden them with, a diverse skill set, and hopefully send them out into industry, having a knowledge and kind of foundation in Elastic solutions. Whether that works to our benefit or not, Elastic is really just committed to using our tools and products to kind of educate, the leaders of tomorrow, not to sound totally cliche, but so I know it sounds like a very like presidential speech I've got going on right now. Just some of the things that we offer are right up here, just free training and support. Obviously Elastic is all about free and open, so we have on-demand courses, and we're really working on a special package just for educators too, knowing that they're going to lead the curriculum design, they're going to lead kind of bringing that into the classroom, and so how can we even give them more access and the ability to kind of educate themselves on Elastic. We also do a lot of things just like you're seeing here today, but a little bit more student focused. So leading a workshop, introducing them to our different solutions, or just Elastic as a company, and on, kind of the career side of it, networking, and, what it's like to work in an industry like this. So just kind of that exposure for students, and Elasticians are, super excited to do things like that. And then obviously bringing them into the community. I think it provides them a really good opportunity to connect with industry leaders, to learn about use cases, to really kind of get that applied experience. And so Elastic has a huge global community. And so it really opens the door to them, to this, kind of whole group of people that are potential employers, or, really mentors or things like that. So just right here is just a QR code. I mean, this is a special one just for students and educators. If you have an EDU address, which if you're working in higher ed, you probably do, you can just sign up for it. It's free 30 days. We've extended our normal trial to give, a little bit more time to experience our products and solutions. If you need more than that, you can reach out to myself, to Phoebe, anyone, and we can always extend it just to kind of give you an opportunity to really test things out and see what you like, what you don't like, where you have questions. We're all about learning and experiencing. So if it's something that you think maybe your university or school would be interested in, my contact info is there. I'll also put it in the chat. And you can just find us on elastic.co as well, and reach out. So happy to help and have that conversation about how we can support you. But super excited to have Alice and Kurt here today, and the opportunity to speak a little bit about this intersection. So thanks so much, Phoebe.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm just going to talk a little bit. Stephanie just mentioned that Elastic does have a really large community. We have over 150 Elastic user groups, meetup groups that meet globally. And that's about 80,000 members. So if you want to get connected with us, these are some more QR codes and links for you. This will take you to our US user group. And then we do have an Elastic Community Slack workspace. This has channels where you can go in and pose questions and talk about stuff on all of our solutions and tools. And then we also have a community YouTube channel. That community YouTube channel of this recording will end up there. We record all of our meetups, and for the most part, and we post them there, so you can get lots of on-demand content. And then our next meetup for this particular user group is going to be Thursday, November 19th. We'll be talking another panel discussion. The topic is SIM, and it's a single pane of glass, myth or reality. is SIM actually doing what we think it should be doing? And so you can grab this. I'll throw this link in the chat as well. And then that's from 11 to noon Pacific. And then lastly, I just want to shout out that Elastic also has a contributor program. And so we like to recognize people who contribute to our open source projects, either through code contributions, if you present at a meetup, if you create a tutorial, if you write a blog post, anything, we love to encourage that. And we're doing that through some friendly competition with our contributor program. You can earn swag and bragging rights and get featured on our website. So if that sounds interesting to you, grab that QR code and link there. And that is pretty much it. Any last questions for the group?
I just want to add on real quick to the contributor program. For those that probably don't know, we have a detection rules repo in GitHub that's open and public, and we're developing all of our rules with the community. So I just want to encourage anyone who's working in the industry that may be watching this to take a look at that and, you know, develop those rules with us. Feel free to contribute and submit those contributions to that contributor program if you would like to win prizes for that effort.
Great, thank you. Any last questions? I think we're going to end just a little bit early if we don't have any more questions. Well, I really want to thank you, Kurt and Alice and Cami and Stephanie, for joining our discussion today.
We really appreciate all you did.
Well, thank you. This is such a cool program. I'm really glad that we can highlight it and share it out to the world, and hopefully some interesting things will come of that. And so we'll keep you
I hope so. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and close it down, and y'all have a great rest of your day.